The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. I am quite excited for the show this week. We got some great stories to talk about. We got some great people to talk to. We got a fantastic guest coming up in the second segment. Harvard Business Review senior editor Kevin Evers is going to be joining us. This one's going to be a blast, folks. You are going to love this episode. It's going to be informative. It's going to be entertaining. We're going to have ourselves a darn good time. Let's go ahead and bring in our co-host this week. We got musician, investor, and frontman for Gideon King and City Blog. Gideon King is here. Hello, Gideon.
Hey, man. How you doing? How you been?
I'm doing very well. I got a big old smile on my face, and I feel like you're going to really love this show, Gideon. Wanting to talk to you a little bit about our guest. I feel like when we have you on the show, Gideon, I feel like we're oftentimes we're dumbing things down in terms of stuff that's not worthy of your intelligence and brilliance, right? You are this sophisticated titan of industry. You're an accomplished investor, and all we do is just talk to you about silly stuff like Taylor Swift. Well, you know what, Gideon? We're raising our game this week. All right, this time I feel like we have brought you a guest that is worthy of your brilliance and business acumen. Good news for you. We have brought you the senior editor at Harvard Business Review, Kevin Evers, to have a sophisticated business conversation. That's the good news. The bad news is we're going to talk to him about Taylor Swift.
So what you're telling me is Taylor Swift herself is not coming on this show. Is that what you're telling me?
Only because we got Kevin Evers. We were going to bring in Taylor Swift, and then I found out we had the opportunity to interview the author of There's Nothing Like This, the strategic genius of Taylor Swift, the Harvard Business Review senior editor, Kevin Evers. And so we told Taylor, lady, you're going to have to wait. We got ourselves a top-notch guest this week, somebody worthy of Gideon King's time and attention.
I regard this show as like the culmination of your obsession with Taylor Swift. You've long had a crush on her, which I would say is borderline obsessive. And now this is it. This is like the culmination of your mania about this woman. And all I can say is congratulations. You've finally made it. You're getting closer and closer to Taylor herself. And I can just say congratulations.
I hope you're not expecting me to vociferously deny anything that you just said. And like, you're talking about me having a crush on Taylor Swift like that's somehow weird. Like I'm out of the ordinary. Oh, Ryan's so weird the way that he has a crush on this beautiful, talented billionaire. Like, you know, who loves beautiful, talented billionaires? Ryan Kairalla is such a weirdo.
That's true. And I have a crush on Steely Dan. So like, I mean, it's which crush is better? Yours is obviously better.
You do that. I mean, and in fact, like if we're keeping score, that is yet another consecutive Gideon King appearance with a Steely Dan reference.
Always, I will always mention Steely Dan. Yeah.
I am so excited for you, though, Gideon. I mean, putting aside the fact that I feel like you're really going to enjoy this guest conversation, I'm excited for just all things happening in Gideon King's music career. I found out that this past Saturday, you were playing Brooklyn Bowl and got to share the stage with Spin Doctors. That's really awesome. Tell us about that experience, because it's no secret that those of us here at Break the Business know that our show is a big fan of Brooklyn Bowl. We've had a lot of Brooklyn Bowl executives on the program in the past as guests. It's an amazing venue. Who doesn't love music? Who doesn't love bowling? You put them together, you have a pretty cool venue. Tell us what it was like playing there.
It was great. I mean, we played in front of a sea of people. I mean, it was absolutely packed. It's a big room. The room sounds great. And it was good for us because the Spin Doctors are not a jam band per se, right? They're not like Fish or Goose, but they kind of are a jam band. And so it was cool to get up and play in front of that type of audience that wants to hear guitar solos, wants to hear good drummers, wants to hear musicians playing. So it was great. And like thing about that band is, man, dude, they have 650 million streams on the song Two Princes. And they have tons of streams on the song Little Miss Can't Be Wrong. So they have a real presence. And by the way, they were tight as hell. They were solid and they played forever. So it was great. It was packed and it was super fun. Man, it's been an incredible few weeks. We were at the Blue Note with John Schofield, and that was really cool. So it's been an amazing few weeks. I'm not as listen. I'm hoping to make $1.6 billion from all this, like Taylor Swift did. That's basically my goal.
So you want to be the topic of Kevin Evers' next book, The Strategic Genius of Gideon King.
No, the strategic failing of Gideon King will be the topic of his next book for sure.
I'd read it either way.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. Schadenfreude.
Gideon, one of the reasons why we enjoy having you on, and perhaps this isn't a topic that you enjoy talking about, or maybe you get like a perverse enjoyment out of talking about it, but we love it when we can bring out like the full Gideon King curmudgeon that just laments how the music industry is changing and how traditional musicianship is going away and everything's just happening on laptops now. And there's at least one prominent person in the music industry right now, one of our top industry thinkers, who kind of is agreeing with you and seems to be adopting this sort of curmudgeonly behavior. We have a new article that came out in the Music 3.0 blog by Bobby Owsinski, who's been on the show before. And the title of it, man, this is a Gideon King title if I've ever heard one. Where did all the garage band goes? So, or garage bands go. So let me lay people out about what this article is saying. It's a article in which Bobby Owsinski laments the decline of what was once a staple of American neighborhoods, the garage band. And he says in the article, quote, "When I moved into my neighborhood 25 years ago, if I went for a walk in any direction, I would eventually run into the sound of a band practicing away in a basement or garage. Today, I am struck with the dearth of music in the air. In fact, I can't remember the last time I heard a garage band rehearsing anywhere at all." Owsinski attributes the decline of garage bands to the rise of technology that makes creating music on your own at home easier, faster, and more affordable. Another culprit, the decline of small music venues where garage bands get their start. Whatever the reason, Owsinski fears that losing garage bands could indicate a loss of the music industry as we know it. Quote, "My biggest fear is that there will be no long-term artists, no music legends or superstars that keep the doors of the largest venues open 20 years from now. Today, live music is where it's at for an artist to rise to the top, and if that dies or even diminishes a bit, the industry is dead. Music has really become disposable." Gideon, I feel like you were like whispering stuff into Bobby Owsinski's ear, Cyrano de Bergerac style, as he was writing this, because I feel like you've said many of these same things on the program. I know you obviously must have played in garage bands in your youth. I certainly played in garage bands in my youth. What do you think of what he's saying here?
I mean, I can give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of the response. The ugly is that, I mean, it's incontrovertibly true. It's undeniably true that garage bands and the communal system of musicianship is breaking down. People don't get together and play as much as they used to. Example, in New York City, there's really just two or three, literally in all of New York City, there's really just 2 or 3 rehearsal spaces now. I mean, that's it, because they're not demanded. And so they've shut down left and right. Most of the jazz clubs and rock and roll clubs have shut down, although some still remain, and a few open here and there. That's the ugly. That he's absolutely right in large measure. The bad is that there are so many forces acting against the necessity to even know anything about music or be able to play in order to create music, that it's, I don't want to say the future is a tragedy or progression is a tragedy, but it's definitely thought provoking and disturbing, because you can go on AI now, just as you can create album artwork, great album artwork on a program like Ideogram. Okay, you can create music now on AI, and between Ableton and so many programs, the need for genuine musicianship, whatever that even means anymore, is declining. So we've done the ugly and we've done the bad. The good is that there is still a thirst for the energy of live music. I mean, I can tell you, we literally walked out there at Brooklyn Bowl. The place was just packed. The second we just literally even touched our instruments, it was like people were having a borderline sexual response. They were so ready to hear the energy of sound, of the physics of sound moving through the air, and they're so into solos. And they're so into the a bit, the fact that people are up there playing real instruments together as a band, reacting to each other, and even making mistakes, and putting out that physical energy, that I do think that good music managers like mine, who manages some really big acts now, really big, will say to their musicians, TikTok's cool and Instagram is cool, but you got to be able to play a live show, and you got to be able to play your instruments, or at least be a DJ and make it happen. You got to be able to do stuff live in front of people. So I guess what I would say is, because there will be this sort of unrelenting thirst, I think, forever for live music, there will always be the need for people to play together, and therefore, by the transitive property, there will always be the need for garage band like practice. But I mean, listen, any sentient human being that looks to the left or to the right knows that whole dynamic is fading, and we're going into a more technologically driven thing. And then the overarching sad point that I'm really positive about is the role of music, as I've even said on your show, I think a long time ago, but the role of music is really changing in people's lives. You don't grab the new album or EP, go home, listen to it, bask in it, relate it to your own life, project your own life onto the lyrics. Now music accompanies you while you're twerking, or you're working out, or you're doing some stupid nonsense. So unfortunately, the role of music in people's lives, not for everyone, and it's not a kind of it's not an absolute generalization, but it's really changed. And it's that's the thing that really bums me out. Now you've got guys doing flips over the piano, or whatever that guy's Benton's name is, and that's sort of like what it is. It's just sort of performative, and the role for people's lives has changed. That's the thing that really bums me out. So I hope that my answer was curmudgeon-y enough for you. If not, you can just fire me and I can leave right now.
I mean, you could have angrily mumbled it a little bit more, but I think the point still came across quite effectively. And I certainly am with you on the idea that technology is not causing people to stop playing guitar or stop playing the piano or stop learning musical instruments, but it is sort of shifting the way that people are playing these instruments out in the world. As TikTok is rising and YouTube is rising, and the Music 3.0 blog article talks about this, is you have a generation of young people that are learning how to play guitar, but they're learning it in a way that to try to make the instrument sound good in a 6-second or 30-second TikTok video. So that means getting really good at playing a 30-second snippet of a song, or getting really good at doing like a really cool looking shred on a guitar that is cool for that particular format. But when that same musician tries to audition for a cover band that's going to play a bunch of gigs, they're not capable of doing that because they don't have a wide library of songs memorized, and they don't know how to just play with a band because they're just playing inside their room. So they're learning the instrument, but they're not learning in a way that is conducive to having a career as a live musician.
No, there's no doubt. I mean, when you can go on Instagram and hear a guy shredding his tail off, but then I have had many experiences where I look on Instagram and I say, "Oh my God, this guy or this woman, they can shred. I mean, I'll never be able to shred like that. It's the most insane. It's like sheets of sound how fast they're playing." And then when you get them in a room to actually play with people, they're like beyond dysfunctional. I mean, the other thing that I'm going to say, that isn't a very everybody gets a trophy kind of ethos comment, but just because technology allows everybody to create a little bit of music doesn't mean everybody should. I mean, it's sort of like Katy Perry going into space. Just because there's technology to get Katy Perry up there as she utters some nonsense doesn't mean everybody should be an astronaut. I think we've learned everybody shouldn't be an astronaut from those comments, and the same goes for music. Not everybody should be a musician. So it's the democratization of the ability to create music is a blessing and a curse. As well, yeah. The analogy to the astronaut thing is dead there because that was just a curse. It wasn't a blessing. But yeah. So anyway, man, I guess I went a little far afield. I went into outer space, I guess, a little bit.
I would have never in my wildest dream guessed that this would have somehow the Blue Origin space flight of Katy Perry and Gayle King would have found its way into your response. But that's what you get with a Gideon King show for sure. I mean, how much of this phenomenon do you blame on internal factors like the musicians just deciding not to get into garage bands anymore because they have this technology at home now? And how much do you lay the blame on the industry, specifically the fact that we don't have as many venues for garage bands to play in that we did a couple generations ago? And record labels are changing their approach now, where it's a lot less about developing these garage band artists and more about just sort of monetizing their existing catalog. So, I mean, how much do you assign blame here?
It's not even about blame. Products evolve. And music, although we like to sort of attach to it this celestial kind of artistic quality, it's product also, and products evolve, and the way they consume gets evolved, the way they're created evolves, the economics of the product gets evolves. And so sadly music has just evolved in a way that it's candy now, and so it's become candy. It isn't interwoven into people's psyche the way it used to be. That isn't true necessarily of a Taylor Swift or a John Mayer. There are these artists that are, that are interweaving themselves into the psyche of young people and others by virtue of the topics they cover in their music. But for the most part, it's just performative candy. And so music has gone from this cultural expression to sort of just a series of Pez dispensers. Now I'm really, really dating myself. For those listeners, Pez dispensers was this little candy thing, and you'd like press this thing and like candy would come out. For those listeners that are under 86 years old, but that's what it's become. The whole system is just a Pez dispenser of little candy-like musical utterances. Not the whole system, but most of the system. So the product has it's evolved, man. I don't blame the record labels for responding and looking for people who have 100,000 followers on Instagram as opposed to developing artists. And I'm not even sure I blame artists for getting good at 6-second clips as opposed to putting on 2-hour shows. It's what's being demanded by the consumer on the ground. And those are the immutable laws of behavioral kind of, economics. And that's just what we're seeing. It just is what it is. Listen, the good news is, there's still a lot of things that kind of militate against that, right? Like there's still lots of great live bands, and there's some great songwriters, and there's people who are using technology in really interesting ways to create music. So I don't want to be too curmudgeon-y. I want to end this with a little smiley exclamation point so that you don't get depressed and have to take any medication to solve the issue.
I guess that is the part of this that I'm having the most trouble wrestling with, is that this is declining, but it's declining in a world where you and I both know that people still love live music. There's still no experience quite like seeing a band on stage playing instruments. I mean, most people, when you ask them like what was one of the most important times in their life or what was one of the best moments of their life, so many people will say seeing their favorite band in concert. I mean, speaking of our guest coming up in the second segment, there are a generation of young people, or probably multiple generations, who, if you ask them to like say, what are the top 10, what's one of the top 10 moments of your life? They're going to say Eras Tour, because there's nothing like seeing a musician perform on stage. So like, if it's still that important in our lives, if it's still that pivotal and that wonderful of a moment, why is it declining? People still love it.
Because we just have, it's not music. It's almost like, think of like political discourse, right? We used to have actual debates. I mean, I don't know, go back 50 years. We would have debates and they were a little nasty, but there were some substantive arguments being made on both sides. Now, when we have debates and political discourse, it's candy. It's these little barbs and decontextualized, backstabbings, as opposed to substantive disagreements and real dialectics that develop out in the public that people can listen to and side with. And so most of politics has just become bitter candy. And that's the same with music. It's the same with literature. It's the same with everything. I mean, like, it is what it is, man. That's just the direction that the world has gone. We started as cavemen, and we're going to end as cavemen, buddy. That's where we're at.
Bitter candy, not delicious candy like Pez dispensers.
No, I can't. I'll never hear the end of the Pez dispenser thing. It's worse than Steely Dan.
I can't even make fun of it that much. Like, I used to love Pez dispenser. Producer Lauren and we have an older brother who actually collected them. He had this like. I remember in my childhood, he had this like just shelf like high up on the wall of his room, just like miles and miles of Pez dispensers. You'd be in heaven, Gideon King. It'd be like your favorite thing in the whole wide world.
I should have kept my mouth shut.
It'd be like when Augustus Gloop saw the river of chocolate in the chocolate factory. That'd be like you looking at all my older brother's Pez dispensers. Exactly. Shifting gears here, wanted to talk about the recent news out of the Creators Guild. I think this is a pretty neat story here. The brand partnerships are becoming a huge source of income for many independent content creators, and oftentimes these partnerships come with a power imbalance, and with big brands having the potential to impose unfavorable terms on the less powerful creative professionals. But recently, the Creators Guild of America, an advocacy organization for digital creators, launched the CGA Rider. This is a supplemental agreement that would be attached to any brand deal involving CGA members. The CGA Rider has already been adopted by several prominent brands, including Linktree, Waller Group, and Lumanu. The CGA Rider includes a number of legal protections that the Guild has deemed critical for protecting creative professionals, including giving creators full rights to the work they create for the brand, limits on the number of revisions, a 90-day payment window, creator access to the brand campaign's analytics, and a prohibition on using the creator's content for AI training without the creator's explicit permission. These kind of protections, Gideon, I think are important because when a lot of these creators go into these brand deals, they're not coming in as employees, so they're not getting a lot of the same kind of protections that employees would get under the law. They're independent contractors. And so if you want these folks to be protected, they need contract terms that protect them. And I'll say, I had a chance at looking at the CGA Rider, and a lot of the things that they were putting in there about owning the content, the short payment windows, things like that. That's stuff that I've often negotiated in these kind of influencer brand deals when I've repped artists on these things. So it's cool to see an organization take the lead, drafting documents like this to try to help their members.
Listen, I agree. The only thing is that I think is interesting is where this all goes with AI and whether what these writers really say and mean with respect to AI. AI is so powerful that it can take anything and transmute it into something else of value now. And so I suspect ultimately that'll all be litigated and sorted out in the courts, because there ain't no way that this writer is going to talk to the 100,000 little issues that will emerge because of AI. So I'm just interested to see where it all goes with AI. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I don't. It's going to be years to watch that thing unpack, this whole AI thing legally.
I mean, I do think we have to keep an eye on a lot of the major lawsuits that are flowing through the pipeline right now, whether it's the lawsuits involving Suno or ChatGPT suing OpenAI. There are several lawsuits that are going through the process right now that are all based in the idea of these major content owners saying, hey, if you're using our data to train your AI, that's copyright infringement. And whether or not the courts say, yeah, I agree, that's copyright infringement, or no, that's not copyright infringement, or at least it's fair use, is going to have a significant impact on everything that happens going forward in terms of the ability to use creator art to make AI. It's going to influence the development of how fast this technology can evolve, and depending on how these courts rule, could represent a huge potential revenue stream for creative professionals, for content companies. And so we got to watch these cases closely and see how powerful these contract terms are going to be in terms of actually protecting a creator's ability to shield their work from being used as training data for AI.
I mean, dude, I can tell you right now that I know singer-songwriters from people who, 20 people come to see them, all the way to people at 5,000 people to come to see them. They go on Grok and they go on Manus and they go on Gemini and ChatGPT and DeepSeek. And they say, write me lyrics sort of in a John Mayer or a Bob Dylan or a, Spandau Ballet or Taylor Swift style. Okay. And out comes a song lyrics. And it's wild because you can see how AI is not overtly ripping off the lyrics of a Taylor Swift or a Bob Dylan, but it certainly is drawing from some of their phraseology, sometimes even using a few words that are ordered the same way as a Taylor Swift or a Bob Dylan song. And I'm just, dude, it's completely wild and insane. I'm just really wondering where all this goes legally, because I'm telling you now, people are writing their lyrics on AI, just like kids are writing their college papers on AI, which they are literally. They're doing it. I mean, I in the legal profession, as you know, I was looking at a lawsuit the other day. I went on Grok. I said, please do a lengthy analysis of this legato lawsuit. Man, 10 pages came out. I didn't need a lawyer. I didn't need to hire a lawyer. And you don't need lyricists. AI is getting that good, but it is stealing, whatever not in a legal, let's not get into the legal concept of what conversion is or stealing, but like it is taking literal phraseology from these people like Taylor Swift and Bob Dylan. I don't know, man. It's so wild and so out there. I've never seen anything like it. I never thought I would see anything like it. Wow.
It's gonna be interesting to see where all of that leads. I think we want to you got to keep an eye on all these cases for the next, say, 18 to 24 months, because I think you're going to see a lot of major decisions start to happen, and depending on how those decisions shake out in the courts, you're going to see a legislative response, and so there's going to be a lot of law happening in the next couple of years that is going to significantly impact art and the way that creative professionals are going to interact with technology. But taking it back to this idea of brand partnerships, let me just ask you this, because you work with so many different companies, whether it's on the entertainment side or the apparel industry. You're investing in a wide range of companies, many of whom, if they don't work with creative professionals on these sort of brand deals, I could certainly see them doing them at some point. When have you ever been in the boardrooms when they've talked about doing these kind of brand partnerships, and what are they sort of looking for when they're setting up these contracts?
It's consistency. If you say to Timothy Chalamet, wear these jeans at your next appearance, okay, one appearance doesn't do it. It's consistency from the stars that you want. You want them to consistently wear your True Religion jeans. If you own a hip hop streaming service, and I have part of it, you want, Travis Scott or Kendrick Lamar, to say, oh, I discover my new hip hop on, Audio Mac. But you want them to say it all the time. And so what you don't want is one-hit wonders. Obviously, I'm misusing that expression, but you don't want these stars to sort of cut a deal with them and then have it be transient. That is the key thing that people look for when they try to get look at Roger Federer and Rolex, okay? Like, that guy has been synonymous with Rolex for like 20 years now. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but like 10 to 20 years, right? So it's like, I mean, you almost don't think of Rolex anymore without imagining Roger Federer looking all suave in a tuxedo, winning Wimbledon with his Rolex watch on. And it's that type of consistency that really helps to build a brand. If Federer flashed a Rolex once or twice on course, it doesn't mean once or twice on court, it doesn't mean a damn thing. So because what people worry about with artists, rightly so sometimes, is they don't follow through. They kind of, well, you know what I mean? They don't follow through. They don't apply a consistent ethic to branding something. So that's where the rubber really meets the road on a lot of these things that I've seen. That's my personal experience. But what do I know, man?
And that's particularly important now, given that the way that a lot of these brand partnerships are happening are on platforms like TikTok, which by its nature is really ephemeral, right? You're interacting with the video for 30 seconds and you may completely forget about that creator. And so a lot of these brand partnerships where it's just make one video and then that's it, they're not going to penetrate and they're going to come off as inauthentic to the audience because it just looks like, oh, you're trying to sell me something because you basically just did one video for this brand. You're saying like what you're looking for as a brand is somebody that you can have a long-term relationship with as a creator so that when they are wearing your Rolex watch or whatever your product is, they're doing it for life so that it seems authentic, like that they're wearing this watch or wearing these jeans because they actually like to wear these jeans and not just because they were a mercenary shilling your product one time.
And for artists, I own a small piece of a business, super small, of a business that helps artists with big social media presence monetize their thing and turn their big social media presence into a real business. And one of the things that this business and its executives do and what they say to the artists is, listen, like when you go to a brand, okay, and you go to, I don't know, Chanel or I don't know, whatever watch brand or whatever, like you have to come off as someone that's going to be a partner for a long period of time in this brand. Not someone who's going to show up a few times, flash a Chanel bag and then leave. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And now these companies that are helping, because that's becoming a big business, companies helping people monetize their social media. In fact, people are paying out 20% of what they earn to these companies that help them monetize their social media database. And so, but what the executives are saying, you got to be a real partner. You can't just flash this watch once or twice and think you're God's gift to earth. You got to work at it, and you have to be a brand ambassador. And that's the word that's now used. Do you want to be a brand ambassador? And then it gets into all kinds of stuff, because if the person runs off and does a ton of cocaine and drives a car into a tree, that's also another problem.
It was one time, Gideon. Really appreciate that insider's perspective. That's pretty illuminating. Thanks very much, Gideon. All right, let's take a break. We got Kevin Evers of Harvard Business Review joining us right after the break. Don't go anywhere. We're back in 2 minutes here on Break the Business. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Thanks, me. Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Ryan Kairalla here with Gideon King, and let me just take us out of the commercial break by extending my heartfelt gratitude to all of you viewers and listeners for supporting this program and continuing to do so. Some of you check us out on volume.com. We love those people and encourage you to keep supporting all the different volume.com programs. Some of you are joining us from SiriusXM 145, and we love you for that. There's a lot of great programs on Slam Radio you can check out. Or you're just joining us on YouTube or Facebook or on all major podcast platforms. And wherever you have come to experience this show, we're just really glad that you did. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for telling a friend and throwing us some reviews and continuing to support this show. We have very much enjoyed the ride around here. Let's go ahead and bring out our guest this week.
Welcome Kevin to the stage tonight. Break the business, feels just right. With tales of wisdom and heart so swift, you're lifting us all with your sparkling gift.
Our guest this week is a senior editor at Harvard Business Review and author of the new book, There's Nothing Like This, The Strategic Genius of Taylor Swift. Our guest book was recently named to the Financial Times What to Read in 2025 list, and you can find it anywhere books are sold. We are happy to welcome Kevin Evers on To Break the Business. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, how's it going, Ryan? My apologies to your listeners. I know I'm not Taylor Swift, but I'm a good consolation prize. Let's put it that way.
I was pretty clear on the fact in the first segment that we bumped Taylor Swift so that we could talk to Kevin Evers. Excited to have you, my friend. Excited about this book. Congratulations on launching it and all the great pub you're already getting. Out of curiosity, what interested you in Taylor Swift as a subject above and beyond the reason I'd be interested, which is just being in love with her and everything about her? But I mean, you could have, as a business writer, you could have written about everything from like interest rates in, China to everything else. But you picked Taylor Swift. Why Taylor Swift?
I have to say it was a close battle between interest rates in China and Taylor Swift. It took a lot of soul searching to determine which one I should pick, and Taylor Swift won. It was a close race, though.
That's right. All of your editors were like, look, if you write about interest rates in China, you're going to get a #1 bestseller.
Exactly.
And you're like,
New
no,
York Times
Taylor
bestseller
Swift is
straight
what I
away.
want to
Yeah.
cover.
Yeah. I mean, Taylor is known for being a great songwriter. I think we can all agree to that. And that has contributed mightily to her success. But she's also very business savvy. She's built an over $2 billion empire at this point. And in business, we're obsessed with startups that have billion-dollar valuations. And in my mind, Taylor Swift is operating in an industry that's very brutal at times. We tend to cycle through stars and superstars as if they're fashion trends. And Taylor keeps winning. She's bigger now than she's ever been, and she's 20 years into her career. So I wanted to ask a very big question that took me about 2 years and all my mornings and nights and weekends to answer. And that is, how has she been able to do this?
And I'm interested in chatting with you on that very topic. But before we do that, I understand that you took your daughter to a Taylor Swift concert, and you said that not only was it a great experience for her, but it was kind of a great one for you because you felt like something of a celebrity just being a dad at a Taylor Swift
Yes.
concert. Can you talk
Yes.
about this?
I would recommend this for any dad out there to take your daughter to a Taylor Swift concert. The bar's pretty low for us dads out there, right? And walking into a Taylor Swift concert with a cute 6-year-old it's like being on a parade float. Really, you're just waving, everyone's swooning.
Look at
and-
that hero.
Exactly. Look at that! What a great dad you are. Yeah. So it was a great experience for sure.
I've also been told that the bathroom situation for dads at the Eras Tour is spectacular because the lines are very, very short.
No lines. Yes, it's great. Yeah, the lines for the women's room it's around the corner. You have to wait hours to get into the bathroom, but for the men's line, straight in.
Love that for you. So I'd like to start it at the beginning with Taylor Swift. One of the things that you write about in the book is how her career success is attributable to her having an uncompromising sense of vision, which is certainly something that we see in a lot of top CEOs. And you note in your book that it's something that she demonstrated at a very young age, as basically when she was a preteen or teenager.
I didn't believe it because it's hard to believe that someone who's 13, 14 years old would have such a clear vision for what she wanted to do. But she really did. She was very adamant that she wanted to write her own songs, and she wanted to write those songs for an audience of her peers, and that was teenage girls. But that was a market that a lot of people in country music didn't think existed. And of course, they had the data and failed experience to back that up with. But if Taylor wasn't so persistent and she wasn't so headstrong, I'm not so sure we'd be talking about Taylor Swift today.
And was pretty, and I hate I'm going to use this word because, pun definitely intended, fearless about those early songwriting sessions as a 13-year-old. You write about how she was writing with people twice, three times her age and was not afraid, was completely willing to tell them, I don't like that lyric. We should do something else. That's a little trite. I mean, was it really that intense for her?
Yeah, she knew when she was going into those songwriting sessions with professional songwriters that they would be skeptical of writing with a 13 or 14-year-old. I would be skeptical of writing with a 13 or 14-year-old. So she made sure she went in with 15 or 20 nearly finished songs. And she did really advocate for her ideas. And there were songwriters who I read their interviews who said, I didn't really know what to make of Taylor Swift because she's kind of pushing me around in these songwriting sessions. But she really understood who her audience was, and that's critical. And sometimes that's really hard to do. I'm a book editor. I work with authors all the time, and the biggest conversations we have all the time is, who is your audience? Who are you writing to? And that's something that some people have a hard time figuring out.
And this book is not just a, love affair with Taylor Swift. You actually get into some pretty deep technical business discussion here. A big part of your book talks about how one of the secrets to her business success was embracing what we call in the business parlance a blue ocean strategy, as opposed to, finding red oceans in which to do business. For the uninitiated, i.e. me, can you talk a little bit about what a blue ocean strategy is and how Taylor Swift embraced it?
A blue ocean strategy is a classic entrepreneurial technique, right? It's trying to seize an opportunity that other people are ignoring. So a blue ocean is an untapped market. It's much easier or much better to operate in a blue ocean because you don't have much competition. This is something that Marvel did in the 1960s. They were in a fight fierce with DC Comics. DC Comics was really geared toward younger people, but Marvel decided to make more human superheroes and to really promote their comics to young adults, college students. And since no one else in the comics industry was really doing that, Marvel found great growth by doing so because they didn't have much competition. You could say the same thing of Swift. Once she broke through in country music, there really wasn't another artist like Taylor Swift. She was a category of one.
That's kind of incomprehensible in the music industry, right? Because I can't think of a redder ocean than the music industry in the 21st century, right? Hyper competitive, hyper democratized. Everybody's doing everything. Every genre is addressed. Everything is super saturated. How does Taylor Swift and how can other artists find blue oceans in today's music industry?
That's such a great question. It's so hard to do. Taylor ended up doing that because she had a clear vision for what she wanted to do. But I also think her partnerships played a huge role in this. She ended up signing with Scott Burchett of Big Machine label group. And what was interesting about that is Scott was working at Universal Label Group at the time. He wanted to leave to start his own label, but that label didn't have funding, it didn't have a headquarters, it didn't even have a name at that point. But Taylor thought that Scott believed in her vision, so she ended up going with Scott. That ended up being a really bold decision for her, but it worked out really well because Scott Burchett had a lot of skin in the game. He needed Taylor Swift to succeed. If Taylor Swift didn't succeed, Big Machine probably would have shuttered. And I don't think she would have received that type of attention at a major label. She would have been competing with a lot of other artists for attention. But Scott didn't have many artists on his label, and he was a great promotions guy, and he was really willing to hustle on her behalf.
What do you think? It's funny. One thing I was going to mention to you guys, another great word for blue ocean. There was a guy in the insurance business a long time ago who said, all I want in life is an unfair advantage. And it was, I forget, I think it might have been Hank Greenberg from AIG, but I really can't remember. But that's a little bit similar to the blue ocean thing, is to be the only person there and sort of tap a market that's otherwise untapped. Here's a question for you, Kevin. You can always guess where certain people, and like you can see certain billionaires, right? The one thrill greater than being rich is often politics, as we've lately noticed with our certain president. But what do you think for Taylor Swift? The next thing is just sort of like a global media empire type thing. What do you think that this woman wants to do next? If you had to
I,
guess.
yeah, I know it's such a big question. It
Particularly in
would,
light of like what other worlds could there be left to conquer? I mean,
yeah.
what like you can't go bigger than the Eras tour.
I don't know. I mean, maybe she could. There's still India. There's Africa. There's plenty of continents she could try to conquer next. I think she moves in a direction similar to Marvel and Star Wars. I think she starts to build different IP around her music. She's rumored to be writing and directing a movie. I'd be really interested to see what that movie's about, whether it's about one of her albums or it's inspired by one of her albums. I would not be surprised by that. But I think she tries to turn into a multimedia empire. That's really the only thing she could do to get bigger than where she is right now.
Let me ask you a question. When I think of a person who's rumored to be $1.6 billion in net worth, I don't know how right or wrong that number is, but it's clearly not 200 million and it's clearly not 7 billion. So she's clearly made a bill or two or three bill. You know, I'm going to ask a question where the answer seems obvious, but it's not to me. Where the hell did all that money come from? And what I mean is, to actually make $1.6 billion touring, if you have any feel for the economics of touring whatsoever,
Yeah.
is like scoring 90 points a game now in the NBA, literally. So what was it? Was it just better deals with the venues, or just the sheer absurd scope and size, or how the hell did she make that much money? I mean, sorry, it sounds sort of like a simpleton's
Well,
question.
the crazy thing is, she could have made a lot more money too. She didn't turn on dynamic pricing during Ticketmaster, and Ticketmaster claimed the demand for the first leg of the U.S. tour. She would have had to play 900 stadium shows to meet that demand. Now, take that with a grain of salt. Ticketmaster had their tail between their legs, and were trying to make do after their systems crashed. But even if you have that number to 450, that's still a crazy demand for those concerts. It's the highest grossing tour of all time, and her gross per show is twice as much as Coldplay's, and Coldplay is in second place for the highest grossing tour of all time. So I think a lot of she was selling out those stadiums. She was charging between $100 and $400 for those tickets, in some cases more for VIP seats. And yeah, I mean, it's almost unbelievable how much that tour grossed and how she could have grossed much more.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like Ryan, one thing I'm super familiar with is the economics of tours, routing tours, what it costs. Really, really painfully familiar with that. And to gross this much and to do what she's done, it's Steve Jobs like. It's like an abstract level of success. It's beyond stratospheric. It's downright abstract relative to the realities of the economic model of throwing a bunch of people in a tour bus and jetting them around the world. And I mean, it's insane, Ryan. It's insane.
Yeah, the idea of recording artists becoming billionaires, unless you're talking about Jimmy Buffett, who like has monetized his brand around like hotels and restaurants and things like that. We don't hear about some like a musician making $1 billion in music.
Yeah, and she in 2024, Hits Daily Double reported that Taylor Swift herself, her streams, her album sales represented close to 2% of the total U.S. recorded music market. Which is it's just an insane, like just Taylor Swift. And, it makes no sense, especially in this day and age, right? This isn't the 1980s. This isn't the 1990s during the CD boom. We're in the streaming age right now, and the economics are not very favorable to most artists. But somehow Taylor Swift has built an empire and represents a huge segment by herself of the U.S. recorded music market. And that doesn't include her merch, and that didn't include the Eras tour gross either. If it did, that number would have been much higher, I believe.
What is the thing, and this is my last one, Ryan, what is the thing when you set out to write this book that surprised you most that you learned about her? whether it's a quality or approach
Yep.
or her, I forget the expression you use in your book, something fragility, so a persistent fragility, or I can't remember it, but it was
Anti-fragility, yeah.
what was it again? Sorry.
Anti-fragility.
That's what it was, where you sort of talked about this notion of turning sort of failure and weakness into this kind of persistent, unstinting success.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise to me is when you look at Taylor Swift, she seems to represent the establishment. She seems to represent basic white girl aesthetics, right? You don't look at her as a rock star. She's not even a transgressive pop star like Madonna. Yet some of the decisions that she made are really punk rock decisions. Her decision to re-record her albums and how
Ah,
that was actually a success, I really do believe that was one of the most punk rock decisions in music history.
mm,
And that's a crazy idea. Prince threatened to do this too in the 1990s, but he didn't follow through. Most artists wouldn't follow through with that because it's a crazy idea to tell your fans, well, don't listen to my old stuff, listen to the new stuff. And she pulled it off. And hats off to her for doing it.
that's a cool answer. I never thought of that, Ryan.
Yeah, no, that is pretty neat. Kevin, what can Taylor Swift teach us or teach business students about crisis management? Because she's gone through a few crises in her career, and I've been pretty impressed by how she was either able to overcome those crises, like what she went through with like Kanye and Kim, or her ability to sort of kind of not have those crises stick to her, like everything that the whole Ticketmaster debacle with the Eras tour, right? Everybody like rightfully came down hard on Ticketmaster, and Taylor did a pretty nice job of dodging any sort of that backlash. What are some overarching crisis management lessons that we can learn from her?
I go back to 2009 during the first Kanye controversy when he went up on stage, stole her mic during the VMAs, and basically told millions of people that she wasn't good enough to win that award.
Yeah.
And a few months later, at the Grammys, Taylor had a pretty bad performance with Stevie Nicks, yet she still won Album of the Year, which is the
We don't
most
talk about that.
And after that period, she faced so much criticism about her voice, about her princess fixation, about the subjects of her songs. Yet she doubled and tripled down on what she does really well for her third album. She returned to songwriting. She said, I'm not going to write this with any other co-writers. I'm going to write this song. I'm going to write this album all by myself. It was basically an FU to her critics. She said, if you don't like it, well, I'm doing this all by myself, so I'm going to execute really well. And that's what she did. And so she does two things. I think she doesn't change too much in the face of criticism and controversies. She doubles and triples down on what she does really well, but she also turns that into great music. Those controversies always go back into her songs. They're always infused into her songs. And by doing so, she turns those controversies into moments of empowerment for her and her fans.
And I suppose that a big reason why she can outlive these, quote unquote scandals is because of what she does in terms of fan engagement, right? She's got this extraordinarily loyal customer base that is willing to follow her wherever she may go. And, when she says, I'm going to re-record my masters, her fans don't go, no, we like the old stuff. They go, whatever you say, Taylor. And so how was she able to get that kind of rabid fan base? Was a lot of it just sort of direct interaction? Because I know for a star of her caliber, she's always been very good about talking to her fans and like commenting on YouTube posts and things like that.
Taylor is completely fan obsessed. Jeff Bezos would call it customer obsessed. And there's a great line that Jeff Bezos has in one of his shareholder letters where he says, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but he says, our customers are delightfully dissatisfied. They may tell us that they love our product, but deep down, customers always want more. And so it's our job to continually delight them. And that fits Taylor to a T. She's done this her entire career. And she will go above and beyond for her fans. And the Eras Tour is a great example of this. She was putting on a global show. She could have played 2 hours. She could have played a greatest hits show. She'd never done that before. And I think her fans would have walked away and they would have been joyous about it. But instead, she plays 3.5 hours. She plays a set list that spanned 40 songs. And that had to come at great emotional and physical cost to her. She was playing 3 nights in a row in most cities. but that's what she's always done. I feel like she gives fans more than their wildest expectations. And that's a big reason why she's been able to forge such close relationships with them. And that's a big reason why her fans stick around for so long.
Our guest is Kevin Evers. He's the author of There's Nothing Like This, The Strategic Genius of Taylor Swift, available wherever you can find your books. I want to ask you one question away from Taylor Swift, only because I know you really like this band. And I want to talk to you about Radiohead.
Yeah.
Know you're a big Radiohead fan, and I don't know if you're aware of this because I don't know how avid of a TikToker you are, but Radiohead's kind of having a moment right now on TikTok. And this happens like every 6 months or so, where the Gen Zers get a hold of another Radiohead song from like 20 years ago and they just become obsessed with it. Right now, the song that is just on the top of the mind of every young person is Let Down. And I guess my question to you is, how happy are you that Let Down is having a resurgence and is just completely depressing a whole new generation of young people?
You know what? I'm not happy about it. I actually didn't know about this, and I know there's rumors that Radiohead may be touring soon, and I want Radiohead tickets. I don't want to end up in a situation like I was trying to get my daughter tickets to the Eras tour. That was that was a complete disaster. That was terrible. It took me 8 hours, and I didn't even get tickets at the end of it. I had to go through other means to get tickets. And yeah, I want to see Radiohead really bad in concert. I've seen them 5 or 6 times, and I'm glad that they're seeing a resurgence with Gen Z on TikTok, but come on, Gen Z, leave Radiohead to the millennial dads out there.
Oh my God. I can't wait for this. Just a group of Gen Zs, descending upon a Radiohead concert in 2025, only to like go rioting and be really mad when they find out that Radiohead never plays Creep live.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Although they started to do that, one of their last tours, they did start to play Creep a bit. But yeah, I'd love to see the disappointment on their faces. Yeah.
I mean, right now, all Gen Zers are being disappointed by Radiohead in a good way, because all they're doing is just setting the song Let Down to like some of the most depressed, sad pictures and videos on TikTok, and the young people are eating it up. So,
well, if they're making their way through Radiohead's discography, once they get the Kid A, they may be in for a rude awakening. Kid A is my favorite album, but
I mean, a good choice.
It's much different than the guitar rock albums. For sure.
Yeah, that one will mess them up a bit, but I'm sure they'll get into it too because it's all great. Yeah. Kevin, this has been a treat. Thank you for taking us through this really amazing musical journey. I don't know what your plans are now after this book launches in terms of what else you can do with this book. If you are planning like some kind of Harvard Business School MBA course around the strategic genius of Taylor Swift, let me know if I can either guest lecture or audit this course, because that sounds like that's going to be pretty fantastic.
For sure. Let's get you and Gideon up to Cambridge and we'll hook it up.
Oh, don't threaten me with a good time. All right. We got one last question before we let you go, Kevin. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
I'd go back to fan obsession. I think talent is so important in the music industry. It's important in any culture market, but relationships and fans are your most scalable asset. So the more obsessed you can be with your fans, the better off you'll be.
Well, we all certainly have a lot to learn from Taylor. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us this week. Our thanks to Kevin Evers and Gideon King. Thanks to producer Lauren, and thanks to all of you viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.
Break the business.